Hello, Blake Rudis here with F64 Academy and F64 Elite, and today I'm going to show you how to fix the electric blue that happens in waterfalls based on white balance and how you can fix it very simply and very easily in both Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop. So here it is in Adobe Camera Raw, also Lightroom, and here it is in Photoshop. There are many benefits to doing it in both places, so let's jump in and I'll show you exactly how to fix this. So you might be thinking, Blake, what on earth are you talking about? Blue waterfalls. All right, well, it happens. It happens. There's many reasons why it could happen. Typically, it's based on your white balance and the fact that the camera's trying to compensate for the amount of green that's in the image and the amount of blue that's in the image. So whites become blue in order to make the image the way you see it. Depending on the white balance that you're shooting in, that's the issue that you could come across with these blue waterfalls. So I'm on pexels.com. I typed in waterfall, and these are the images that I'm coming up with for examples to kind of show you. A lot of these waterfalls actually don't have blue water. Look at these waterfalls. Nice white that's coming across here. This one, extreme amount of blue happening in there that probably is not accurate to that actual waterfall. This probably is because it looks like it might be in Iceland or something like that, and the water is very blue there. This one, definitely not. That shouldn't have as much blue in it. But if we keep scrolling down, we're going to find some really good examples like this one where the water is really blue. It's not actually blue. It's supposed to be white. There's some really good examples right here. See this one? It's like this ultramarine blue that this water is turned into, and this one where the water looks like an ultramarine blue, and this one where the water looks like an ultramarine blue. Okay. We're going to fix that. So I'm going to click on this image. These are all stock images that you can download from Pexels to use. So recently I purchased this ebook for a place that I'm going to be shooting at in the upcoming months, and I do that a lot. I find other professional photographers who write ebooks on these places so that when I go there I know exactly what to shoot. It's not cheating because they wrote the book for it, okay? But a lot of his pictures had these hyper electric blue waterfalls, and I'm like, man, you're a pro. Come on, man, it's so easy to fix. So I'm going to go ahead and download this. I'm going to press the free download button. I'm going to right click here and I'm going to say copy image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this into Photoshop, paste it into Photoshop, and show you how to fix it in both Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop rather quickly. So in Photoshop here, I can press Control N or Command N for a new document. Hit that clipboard button, press create because it's going to make the document for whatever's on your clipboard, and Control V because I copied that image from Pexels. So now if I right click and say fit on screen, I'm going to use Adobe Camera Raw as a filter to kind of mock up what would happen in the editing process. So with this first one, I'm just going to duplicate this so that we have the source image here. I'm going to press Control Shift and A. Now that's going to bring me into Adobe Camera Raw as a filter because I'm using Photoshop CC. What I'm talking about here is basically white balances. So if we were to move this white balance over until we get rid of the blue water and start to get more of a yellow image, look at how far we have to move that in order to get the blue out of the waterfall, and the blue is still there. So I can see from this artist's perspective that they didn't want to do that to get rid of the blue, but it's a compensation thing. If you go right in the middle, you still have blue and it's a little too yellow. So we'll change this back to 0 because I like the look that they've gotten with this image. The trick is actually going to be up here. If we go to HSL and grayscale. So in this HSL, I know that this is blue. So if I go to the saturation in blue and I bump this up, you can see where blue exists in this image. So I'm going to bring that blue down. And look what happens when I bring the saturation down in the blues. Now I'm not going to go all the way down because that's going to give me like a black and white contrast next to this green that just doesn't look good. It needs a little bit of blue there, but not as much as it had before. So bring that down to like -70 or something like that. The other cool part about this is I can go into the luminance of the color blue and I can make that waterfall lighter and darker. So if I make it lighter, it's going to make that waterfall more white. But you see here, that also makes it really milky. So if I bring this down, I can get rid of some of that hazy blue that's happening around the water in the waterfall. So if we go back to the very beginning of where we started here, here's the before and here's the after. I told you once you see this, you will never not see it, okay? It's one of those things that once you see that it's so easy to remove the blue from a waterfall, you'll be doing it to all of your waterfall images. So we'll open this up. And this was with, we'll call this ACR, okay? So what's the other way we can do this? Well, if we have this layer here, this is our working document with the blue. we can go on top of this layer, we can go into the adjustment layers and put a hue saturation adjustment layer on top of this. The cool thing about this is that we can actually target that color. So I can use the targeted adjustment tool, click on that culprit color, which is our blue, and I can reduce the saturation just like we did in Adobe Camera Raw, but now I've got it on an adjustment layer in Photoshop. There's many different reasons why you'd want that on an adjustment layer in Photoshop, because now we can actually mask things out. Say there was other blue things in this image, like maybe there was some blue on the rocks, or someone's walking through here with a blue sweater on. Well, if we drop the saturation, that their sweater is now going to turn gray. So when we use this as an adjustment layer in Photoshop, we have a mask here that we can paint in black to recover areas in the image. So let's say these rocks up here did have some blue in them. I can make my brush a little bit bigger here, and I could just paint with black, and I could bring that area back, and that's how you would resurrect those areas. Obviously, there's no blue in those areas in this image, so it's not really going to help. The other thing that makes this useful is that if we click on the adjustment layer, we now have the opacity here, so we can drop the opacity if we wanted to. We can also go into the blend mode and maybe change this to color blend mode. And the color blend mode is nice because it will apply the colors from the hue saturation adjustment layer to that water, but allow the tones to show through. So let's say we were adjusting this at normal, and if we go into the blue here real quick, and we drop that saturation down, and we increase the lightness really high. If we change this to color, what you'll notice is it doesn't bring the lightness up that high. Why? Well, it's protecting the underlying layer's tones. So because the underlying layer's tones here are still darker, it's not going to allow that waterfall to get so bright that it washes out that image like that. So we can bring that saturation up a little bit. The other cool thing about this here too is that we can adjust the hue of that waterfall too. So if it's, say it's a sunset or something like that, and there's this beautiful magenta glow that's coming over the image. Well, instead of that being a bluish color, you can move the hue slider over a little bit to give it like an orangish tinge, or a magenta tinge, or a reddish tinge, to add some color into that waterfall other than the color blue. So let's go ahead and we will flatten this down. I'll press Control Shift Alt and E so you can see what we did here. I'll go ahead and delete this layer. And now we have the Adobe Camera Raw version, and we have the Photoshop version. And here's the original, and here's the after. Notice how much blue is actually in that image that shouldn't be in there. I mean, it's amazing. Once you see this, you will never unsee it. So I've essentially ruined long exposure waterfall photography for you. If you've ever loved an image like that, and then you see these electric vibrating blue that's happening in the waterfall, you know how to fix it. So I showed you two ways to do this. We have Adobe Camera Raw, where you can go into the HSL adjustment and drop down the saturation in those blues. And then we came into Photoshop, and I showed you how to do it in Photoshop on an adjustment layer with the hue saturation adjustment layer, which is extremely beneficial for us because it gives us access to masks, it gives us access to blend if, it gives us access to blend modes, it gives us access to opacity, so you can see the possibilities when you use it as an adjustment layer on your images rather than using it in Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom. So again, my name is Blake Rudis. If you like this, please comment on it, share it, tell a friend, and please, no more electric blue waterfalls. Thank you. Have a great day.